Let's now quickly talk about the very important concept of inheritance in CSS and also introduce you to the global selector. So remember how I said by the end of the last lecture that it wouldn't be a lot of fun having to add this white color property to all the elements that we want to have a white text, right? Would be way too much work. So there are some solutions to that. The first one would be to basically select every single element on the page and then give them that color. So in CSS, there's something called the global selector, which is this asterisk, and then just like this. So color, and then we can actually select it from here. And even if I now delete this from here, you see that the color is still white everywhere. And that includes places where before it wasn't, like inside these buttons, even this text right here. And of course, it would work with other properties. So we could also say background color red for every single element, and then that would look like that. Now you see that actually here, this background color that we did define for the facts will basically take precedence over this one, but that's another topic. So if we define something on an element, then it will basically override what comes from the global selector here. But of course we don't want this anyway, and so let's go back here. Now you see there are some problems. For example, these buttons also have white text right now, and we don't want that. So instead, we want to leverage a very important concept in CSS, which is called inheritance. And inheritance basically means that some CSS properties will get inherited from parents to children. So with parents, of course, I mean elements that have other elements inside of them. So for example, this header is the parent of this image and this h1, right? So what we can do now is to add the color property to an element that is the parent of all of these here. So which element is that? Well, it's the body. And so what we usually do in CSS is that we add the color property to the body. Okay, so that's way better. Give it a save. And so all of the elements, or most of them, are now still white, but not all of them, because some of the elements, and especially that's form elements, so buttons and input values like this one here, they do not inherit colors or even anything else. But most of the elements do inherit this color property. And so therefore, it's a very good option to always put it here on the body. Because again, the body element is the common parent of all other elements that are on the page. Now, as I said before, only some properties will actually get inherited. So usually that's most properties that are related to text. So we could also do text transform like we did on the h1 element and put everything to uppercase like this. And then you see that all the rest here, so in this case only these paragraphs, they also get transformed to uppercase because this is a text property, and so it gets inherited from this common parent. All right. But for example, background color, that wouldn't make a lot of sense to get inherited always to all the children, right? So background color, let's try red again. And so now only basically the entire page gets the color, but not everything else, right? So before, when we had it in the global selector, all the buttons were red as well because all of them got selected. But now the background color does not get inherited down to all the elements. So it only stays on the body. Okay, so the easiest trick to remember is basically that most color properties get inherited and the other ones do not. And in fact, that allows us to now do something, which is to move this font family here also to the body, right? Because then both the fact and the tag will inherit it automatically. Well, actually not in this case, because the tag is another font family. So this one has Koine. But basically most of the page, we want it to be this one, so the Sono. For example, this 200 that we have right here, it should also have basically this default font. And so if we move this to the body, then all the elements that don't have a font family defined on their own will inherit it. So paste that here. And so as we save, this here should stay the same, and we should see the same font family applied to this 200 here. And indeed, that looks different now. And again, yeah, these buttons and the form elements, they do not inherit this font because they are special elements. We need to basically style them a little bit differently, as we will do at the end of the section. Great, so that's a really important concept in CSS. Hopefully that made sense. If I was going a little bit too fast, well, then that's just because this is called a crash course. As always, or as I maybe mentioned before, I have, of course, bigger courses that go more into depth into all of this. Especially, I have a really nice HTML and CSS course where you understand all of this a little bit step by step. But here, of course, we just want to build this application and to get to learn a little bit of CSS. And so hopefully you understood this concept. Of course, you can go back, watch the video again. But yeah, otherwise, let's just move on right to the next one, where we will talk about one of the most important things of CSS.